Yeah, Ferdinando, he's sort of working on the, market garden, because we had a market garden. We all had to work. We'd get up in the morning before we go to school. We had to go and pick beets. We had to hoe the chilies.
Because that's what your parents did.
Because that's what they done. Yeah, so we, as a family, that's what we done. We just helped. We didn't have to think twice about it. There was no back answering in those days.
No.
And then Fred started going to Melbourne to the market a few times with my father, and he became very interested in the market, and he started working in the Melbourne markets.
And I think he's now known as a capsicum king.
Yes, he got to become the capsicum king. He's very,
which is very good. And your own children, what do they do?
Well, my own children, of course, things were different when my children grew up. We were a bit, more freely with them. We weren't strict like my parents were. My eldest daughter, we have 6 children, as I said. Marcella, she married a local boy, and they've also got a property, and he's also an engineer, so they build sheds and things like that. She has 4 children. And then there's Dino, our son, who has 3 boys, and he now runs one of our properties, one of our bigger properties. Right. We've more or less passed it on to him, and he manages that property, not very far from here. Piero, he's an artist. Right. He's very passionate about his Italian culture. Most of my children, I think all my children are a bit passionate about their culture. Piero's more passionate. He lived in Italy for 6 years too, and he loves Calabria even. Gabriella, she works for Flight Centre.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. And she's here locally, working here.
Yeah. In Mildura.
In Mildura, yes. And Renata, she worked in high-end hospitality, right. And then she worked as a tourist advisor in Adelaide for 2 years. You can just imagine, she was a child of 6. She went to Adelaide. She was in a little unit on her own. I could see each time she come home she was going back sad. And one day she come back and she said, "Do you have work for me on the land?" Yeah, I want to work here. And I thought, gosh, we looked at ourselves with Gina. I thought, oh gosh, this beautiful young girl going to work on the land. I don't know about that. But anyhow, she's working for us. She's managing now. A lot of the things I used to do, she's doing. That's why I can sit here with you today.
Oh, okay.
And then we have Consuela. She's a natural therapist. She works for the company Swiss at the moment in Melbourne. And also working with us is our son-in-law, Gabriella's husband. He works for us too. He's managing the fields and water and everything else and workers. Our daughter-in-law, Christine, Dino's wife, does the office twice a week. And, so we're hoping to pull back while the kids
are coming. I was going to ask, because from what I've seen, one of the issues with a lot of Italian families, not just Calabrese, but is a lack of succession planning. The parents often want to retain what they see as a power.
I just grabbed a glass of water while I'm talking to you.
Until they expire, whereas common sense dictates that it's better to plan so that when, as we all must, die, it won't be as difficult for the enterprise to continue. And I've spoken to a few people, and the majority of them say, "Well, until I'm able, I'm going to do it." When I'm gone, I don't really care what happens. But
no. With 6 children, you've got to be planned, otherwise
so you've got to plan. And that's good. And it's also good that the kids are wanting to be.
They're wanting to be, yes, yeah.
Because as you would know, part of the problem with being on the land is that the younger generation don't see a future, especially in some areas. But I think you've got a niche in terms of the tabletop grapes. And
yes,
you also export, do you not?
Tabletop grapes, we also do dry fruit, right. And the dry fruit has become so popular. We started off the dry fruit. We were the first to get a license to independently market our own fruit, because we come up with the cluster drying, which is drying fruit on a bunch, in the 1980s. And no one was doing it, and we just I said to Gina, we should be able to dry this naturally on the bunch. We could have a market. So we started, and we didn't know about the regulations and anything like that. So we sent it to Melbourne somewhere in those days in a box, packed it and sent it to Melbourne. Well, we had a knock on our door one day because the dry fruit was under an umbrella of the dry fruit ADFA. You had to be ADFA, it had to go through them, no one else. And we just apologised, and we're very sorry, we didn't realise, we just thought we had this line of fruit and we thought we could market it, and they were very nice to us. And then, to cut a long story short, then they said, look, you can apply to get a licence. And we thought, can we? So they helped us apply to get a licence. We got a licence, got approved, and we were able to market our own dry fruit. Well, from there now, we even export overseas. We're just still family business. We're not cooperative. We're not big exploding. We're just doing it with passion, and it's taken.
And in a way, I think that's your strength, because I've also been told that there used to be a very big dried fruit enterprise in Mildura, and then that went because apparently it worked as a cooperative.
Yes, that's what I mean. It's ADFA.
Yeah. And do you recollect that? What happened? That apparently a lot of growers were literally put out of business, and they had to leave the dry fruit industry.
I think the prices weren't enough to pay. Like in those early days, people only had 10 acres of dry fruit. And with that 10 acres, they send their kids to school, they send their kids, they managed to make a living and live comfortable. It got to the stage, those old vines, this is the way I see it, those old vines weren't producing enough to make it viable.
Right.
All the new varieties were coming in that produce a lot of fruit. So the growers had to rip off the old vines and plant new. We had to do that here. Right. When we purchased this property here, it was very little productive. It wasn't producing enough. We could see that. Yeah. So we had to start planting new plantings to make it productive. And we had to do that rather early, even had to borrow money to do that early, because we could see otherwise we weren't going to make a living. And I think that's what happened to a lot of growers.
And how do you, what's the process for drying the fruit as an individual? I don't know, I mean, if it's mass produced, I take it they just get all the fruit to some premises and they just put them out and they dry them.
Well, I'll take you how it used to be. We used to have this is why we changed. I'll tell you the story why we went to natural drying. We used to dry it conventionally the way everyone else dried it, and we used to have a tank, a dip tank in the ground. This used to be my job. I used to drive over with the tractor, stop when the tank was over the dip. We used to call it a dip. With a hydraulic system, we used to drown the fruit down into the dip, leave it there for about 10 to 15 minutes if I recall rightly, and then bring it back up with all the water dripping off. In that water there used to be potash and whatever else was in it. Anyhow, we were just new, we were young, new, we're still learning, and that was okay. We done it, we put it on the racks, it would dry. Okay, it took about a week to dry. The weather was good. One day we went to help my auntie down the road, Virginia, and I remember quite clearly I had the two young kids, two first children, young kids, and I got a handful to eat it. And my Zia said, no mangiare questo. I said, why? It's dry. And then I got thinking, and she said, but you have to wash it first. And I realised that what we were putting in the fruit was not good. So I said to Gina, there should be a way. Then also our daughter would become allergic to sulphur, because there's sulphur in the water as well, and she'd get ulcers. So there has to be a way that we can dry it naturally. And we were one of the first to actually build a dehydrator to put the fruit in a dehydrator and dry it without any use of any chemicals at all.
Yeah. Well, the sulphur would have been used as a preservative, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was used as a preservative, but there's potash and stuff like that you wouldn't put in your mouth.
No.
So this is how you can tell. If the fruit is light in colour, It's had the old system in it.
Right.
If it's dark, because when you dry natural, the food will stay dark.
Yeah.
So it'll be darker. That's one way of charting. And you can taste it. When you taste our fruit, you don't have that soapy flavour in it. It's
It's the same, I don't know about the other fruit, but dried tomatoes, because I remember my mother used to dry tomatoes and she'd cut the tomatoes, spread them out on a sort of tray and leave them out.
Yeah.
Not put anything, maybe a little bit of salt on them, but nothing else.
No.
And they were delicious.
Of course.
And then later on, I bought some in the store, and I thought, well, this isn't the taste of dried tomato. And now I know why, because clearly, if it's done on a commercial basis, they've got to make sure that they don't go off, and they use preservatives and other chemicals as well.
Yeah. No, as I said, we just dried natural.
Yeah.
We're not, we just whatever we could manage, we dried, and just to,
And it's obviously worked for you because you're still here.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And so you're hoping, obviously, that your children will take over.
Yes, we've got children interested enough to defect, that we're already pulling back this year. Yeah. We pulled back a lot, and the kids are taking over, the selling, the pricing, talking to the workers, talking to the contractors, the supervision in the block. Between the two of them, they're managing very well.
Yeah. So there's been that change in the sense, I think, 50 years ago, probably succession planning would have been a bit different, and so you noticed that. In terms of your own life and your experiences as a child of Calabrese immigrants, what changes have you seen in Mildura in the way that people have related to you and as you matured?
Yeah. Growing up, it was a bit difficult. We weren't always proud to be Italian there to one stage. As I said, once I went to Melbourne, I realised that I'm going to be proud to be Italian. But now I find that we have a lot of involved in a lot of community events, and I get to meet a lot of people. We've got a lot of Australian friends. They just want to be Italian. If they know a word, it might be just buongiorno, buongiorno or whatever, they'll use it, they put their shoulders up. They're so proud to use that Italian word, So the Italian culture has been embraced. They come here and they think, oh, Elena, we feel like we're in Italy when we come to your place, They love it. And you go to their place and they'll try and do an Italian flavour to whatever they're doing. So the Italian culture to what it used to be is just appreciated so much more. I think.
I think you're right. Certainly, I think it'd be true that in the 50s and the 60s it wasn't cool to be Italian or indeed any migrant, I would have thought, and that's changed. I think maybe part of the process why Italians are now more accepted is that there are newer migrants who are copying the same sort of prejudice that the Italians and others copped in the 50s and 60s. But also I think, and this is the purpose of the program, is that Calabrese and Italians have made very significant contributions to the broader community. And the importance, I think, of today is that our heritage is as important in that contribution as the actual work that we do. And that's, I think, what is being more and more accepted. And I hope that a lot more Calabrese accept it for themselves. But what do you think?
Definitely should be accepted and proud of our Calabrese culture. Like here at our place with our family, we have we've had more over the years. Lots of times we've done salami making days. It's not the Italians that come along to that; it's the Australians. I've had sauce making days through different institutes. I've had bread making days. I've had people filming here. They're all looking for that culture, that Calabrese culture. And what else? I've had so many things. Olive making. And people just come from not only Mildura, they come from out of Mildura. They just want to experience the culture, the true culture. It's not a set up. It's not set up in a classroom. It's true culture, and people want to see that. We have a dinner in the Festa de la Vendemmia, which is happening tomorrow night.
Right.
And
tell us how did that originate? Because I find that an amazing.
Okay, it originated in the year 2002, I think it was.
Yeah.
Stefano, who's done a lot of filming here, he used our cantina as his kitchen when he done his one of his shows.
On the Murray.
He done his second one, which was Paradiso, I think. Paradiso.
Yeah.
Gondola, we appeared in all his shows. Yeah. We appeared in a lot of TV shows and things like that. The culture is just something that people embrace. So when we have these days here, people just love it. Anyhow, the Festa de la Vendemmia, that started off in the year 2002. Stefano was looking for a venue. He was wanting to have a venue for the Slow Food Association, which we've been members of since then. They were having a conference here in Mildura, and he said, I've got to find a venue that's a little bit different. And we've got these Italian high trellis vines that it's very unique to Mildura. No one else has them. And I said, because I always loved when I walked in that vineyard, because I love walking in the vineyard and just walking, and it's just so tranquil and so beautiful with the grapes hanging. You just feel like you're energised. And I said, Stefano, would you like to do it in the vineyard? Do you think that would work? He said, I come have a look. So we done it first year, 2002. I even had Maggie Beer, walked alongside Maggie Beer. She came too, and we had the first dinner in the vineyard. Well, it's been going every year, except I think we missed out about 2 years
because of COVID.
So what we do is we sit, and it's usually for a fundraiser. We host it, but we don't make money from it. It's always for a charity organisation, which is a beautiful charity that it's going to this year too. And we set up the tables in an actually working vineyard, 2 rows of long tables, and we create a beautiful night. We have a piano cordonist player. I make zippoli as people arrive. And then the chefs come in with their menus. Some years I've done more than just zippoli, but I want to enjoy the night too. So when we can find chefs, they do it.
Explain what zippoli are.
Zippoli. Sorry everybody, because it's sold out, so you won't be able to come tomorrow night. Zippoli is... I actually have to explain how I started off in Mildura with zippoli making, and then I'll explain what it is. When my children were going to school, I'd always organise once again Italian events, to raise money for the school. I'd done cabarets and organised cabarets and all sorts of things, and it'd always sell out. So we were doing a fundraiser on a Sunday, and I said to one of the Italian ladies, I said, maybe we can make zippoli and sell them. And she said, do you think the Aussies would buy them? I said, yeah, I think they would. So we made zippoli. Wow, they were lined up, they were queued. People were queued. The second year we made it, people were queued for breakfast to have zippoli. And as an Italian, we don't have them for breakfast, you have them later on. But anyhow, they were a hot hit. I got all the mothers that didn't know how to make them, mind you. I had to teach people my age how to make zippoli, which wasn't too difficult. I taught everyone how to make them. They brought their grandmothers who knew how to make them. And we had a beautiful marquee there with all the Italian, the pasta was next door. Cooked the pasta in a marquee next door. We done a zippoli, and it was so much fun, as well as introducing it to everybody. So the zippoli is a bread dough. I say bread dough, a lot softer though. And then you have to, there's a technique of picking it up, and you have to put an anchovy inside, twist the dough so it stays together, and put in the hot oil. And the anchovy, as it cooks, it comes out through the dough, and you get that beautiful flavour of the zippola. with the anchovy inside.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So in Mildura now, after that, everyone knows what a zippuller is. Yeah. Before that, nobody knew what a zippuller was.
And at the Festival of the Vendemmia, you say that there's a piano accordion. I understand that sometimes there's even opera singers. Is that?
Yes, we've had a few different people just turn up, but most of the time it's Calabrese music. It fits the night. It's a piano accordion because that's sort of more Calabrese. But this year, I'll tell you what happened, which I can't believe it. I think someone up there helped me. Stefano said, "Elena, you leave it up to you to find someone, piano accordionist, find someone local or whatever." And I'm thinking, the locals, we haven't really got someone really full on. But anyhow, I thought I'll see. I get this phone call from a gentleman from Italy that I thought was still in Italy, and he said, "Giovanni Grillo, Elena, come stai? Famiglia tutto bene?" I said, "Giovanni, dove sei?" He said, "I'm in Adelaide."
Oh.
He said, "Sono Adelaide." He said, "I know you're involved with a lot of things. Would you have anything for me?"
Oh.
I said, he said, "I'm here all the month of February." And I'm thinking, straight away my brain's thinking very fast. I said, "Are you here on the 4th of March?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yes, I'm leaving on the 8th.
Oh.
I said, "Well, would you like to come over on the 4th of March?" He said, "See, I'd love to come over." So it was a lot of work trying to get Adelaide to Mildura in public transport, but we managed to get it. So he's coming to play directly from Italy, and he's a professional.
And he's a piano accordion.
Yes.
Oh, lovely.
So,
and clearly, the vineyard that you're referring to, that's not where we are today. It's
it's another property about 5 minutes from here. Right. Gina went to Italy in the 80s and he saw this pergola trellising.
Right.
And he came back and fell in love with that pergola trellising. And we were at the time rebuilding that property. So he said, "I want to build it like Italy."
Yeah. And why is that considered to be better? Is it just we're copying Italy, or is it better production?
It's better production as well. You can walk standing up underneath with the vines on top.
Right. Oh, okay.
You would not be able to sit at tables in a low vineyard because then you can't walk behind.
No, yeah.
So in this vineyard you can actually walk, you can duck underneath really easy. You can almost, so it's possible to have it there. And so it's become popular and it gets booked out within a short time. The tickets come available.
Well, they're very rare, from what I understand. And I'm glad to say I'm fortunate enough to have a ticket for this year. So,
the only thing I've heard of advertising is, because I'm very particular about things like that, I've heard of advertising as dinner in the vineyard, under the vines.
Yeah.
Dinner under the vines. I'm thinking, no, it's not dinner under the vines, it's dinner in the vineyard.
Yeah. And in fact, Vendemmia, that's really a harvest festival, isn't it?
Feast of the Harvest.
Yeah,
we come up with that name. Actually, I came up with that name when we first started.
Because in Italy they do that, even in Calabria.
From the festival.
Maybe not on
in a different way,
the same scale, but they have festivals at harvest time, which is pretty normal, I would have thought.
Yeah.
And that's good. I'm really looking forward.
Yeah.
And in terms of the group that you took over from your mother, what's going to happen to that as you step back? Do you have someone in mind that can take it over?
I don't at this stage, no, I don't. But as I said, I promised to my mother, as long as I can find people to come in, it'll go. Yeah. But now I find it's less and less. So what I've done with this last family, I went and taught them how to do it, so I can still do that and teach other people how to do it that belong to different groups. But I've gone to schools and taught people at schools, and the kids love it.
But that raises, I think, a general issue about the younger people and their relationship to the culture. And I've got to say, even in our own association, it's been a lot more difficult attracting younger people than it has been attracting the older people. Why do you think that's
I find that. I'm involved with other events too, the Fest of San Rocco. I'm the president there, and there's getting the younger people involved, I don't know. I mean, they're involved in a lot of other things that are priority. I think it's not that they haven't got it in their heart, but you're not living it. You got other things that are more there's ballet. But my kids done ballet. I was still involved in all this thing. My kids done sport, but I don't know. It's a lifestyle where that's not priority. So I don't know. That's something that's really I see it all the time.
Yeah, and I've got to say, it's not just in the Calabrese. A few months ago, I went to a function held by the Sicilian Association, which is obviously bad, and the same thing there. Most of the people there were over 50. And I spoke to the prisoner. I said, he said, we can't attract young people. I said, and I'm hoping someone comes up with an idea as to what might be attractive to the younger people, and they can take over, because really, if we don't connect them, everything's terminal.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I've tried hard to attract younger people, but then I find that they, to a certain age, they'll stay, and then once they get to secondary school, they can become a little bit embarrassed too.
Yeah.
It's not cool, it's not a cool thing, unless they sort of come back to their culture where they think, oh, it's cool to be Calabrese, it's cool to be Italian, this is part of our Italian culture, but they don't see all the time. I don't know.
It's interesting because you personally have received, much deserved publicity about that role, haven't you?
Definitely. Yes.
You've been interviewed, I think, George Negus and others, and you've been on TV, and yet you haven't been able to succession plan either. So
no. I had, we've just had opportunities that are just amazing here in what I do, and I think it just I didn't set it out to become popular or become known. It's just happened that this is what I do, and become popular. I remember Al Brown from New Zealand. He's got his own TV shows. We've had TV shows, they just show up here. And he came, I still remember this, and he sort of, because it was very touching. And when I make the bread, my mother taught me the first bread that goes in the oven, you actually put a cross on it, and you put that in the oven first, and then you put all the rest of the bread in. Well, that bread, you've got to give it away. You don't keep it to yourself. And it's Ubani Benedetto, the blessed bread, as they say. You give it to somebody. Well, Al Brown was here with his camera crew and everything that. And as I took out the last bread, I said, Al, this is for you. And I told him the story. I said, because you give it to somebody. It's called the blessed bread. You give it away. So I'm going to give it to you today. Well, he got so emotional.
Yeah.
It was off camera. He got so emotional. He said, I just felt so... he said, I just can't believe it. And then the camera crew said, of course, we have to put that on camera. We did put it on camera, but just, the emotion had gone. So I still gave it to him, and it showed on camera. And another time, Stefano, for George Negus' show, this was for George Negus, he rang me from Melbourne. He said, a lot of things happen in a way that you don't expect them to happen, and I believe that it's meant to be whatever's meant to be. And Stefano said, I'm coming on such and such a day with George Negus to Mildura. I want him to come to your place to film something for his TV show. He asked me to find somebody. He said, I want you to do maybe grappetto, which I often cook grappetto here. He said, something that's close to your mother. So grappetto would be the one, he said. Anyhow, I thought, and I'm thinking, close to my mother, grappetto, it's not the one that was close to my mother. I felt it's not in the heart there. So I changed it to the gotta. I said, Stefano, I thought he's going to get mad at me, but he didn't. I said, I've changed it to ricotta because ricotta is something that I remember as a child and my mother standing there making a ricotta because we used to have a cow or a goat. So at Agotta, I made it with the Nachi, which is a fig branch. And Stefan had never seen it, or George Negus, or anybody else by that time. And I thought, right. And sometimes Agotta's very touchy. You've got to get it at the right temperature. It won't turn out otherwise. So I went and lit a candle to my mother. My mother had only gone about a few years before. And I lit a candle and I said, now you got to help me. This Agotta's got to turn out. So much so that my husband was worried. He said, better get someone to buy some in case it doesn't turn out. I said, oh no, it's going to turn out. I said,
be positive.
It's going to turn out. Anyhow, made this Agotta, in a bowl, and turning it around with the nachul, and I'm thinking, gosh, Mum, you better make it work. This is something that I had to do close. It was close to you, and that Agotta turned out perfect. Anyhow, I wasn't aware, and then as I was telling the story, once again they were getting emotional,
right?
Because I was telling the story, and he was getting very emotional. He said, "Have you got a photo of your mum and dad?" I said, "Oh yeah, I've got a photo of Mum and Dad." And I went and got a photo of Mum and Dad, and he said, "Do you think that it's okay to take it? Because I said, "Look, my mum, all she wanted to do was be on TV one day." I said, "You wouldn't believe it."
And there you go.
Yeah, I said, "You wouldn't believe it." She just wanted to be on TV. Because she was on TV a few times, doing performing or making biscuits, showing. I said she would be in her glory. She'd be dancing up there in heaven. Anyhow, you could see. Anyhow, they took it and they done a tribute to my parents.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I've got it on video somewhere. It was the best thing, a tribute. It was just so amazing. And I thought, there you go,
Yeah, it is amazing. And happy to say I've met your son Piero, the artist. Hopefully,
I'm just going to grab the water, excuse me.
Hopefully he's agreed. As we were discussing previously, we've got a conference in Calabria between the 19th and the 21st of September, and hopefully he'll be a speaker because the thesis that he did is in MA, and I hope you can make it as well.
Yes, I'd love to make it in September.
And if you want to tell the people at the conference about your experiences, not only in the folkloric group, but even in your enterprise here, we'd love you. Because I understand you'll be in Calabria. Well, you'll be in Italy anyway.
Yes, we'll be in Italy at that time. Yeah, I was just going to tell you about the other. How some people migrated from. Like our parents migrated to Australia.
Right.
Some people migrated to Milan or wherever and never came back.
Yeah.
This is what thing that touched my heart one day when I was in Benestati in our hometown. There was a lady I could see she wasn't from the region because she looked like a tourist, and I said, I went up to her and talked to her. We were just going for a walk, and I introduced myself, and she said, this is where my parents used to live, and she showed me the house was sort of where her parents used to live, and I said, which country are you from? She said, oh no, I'm in Italy. She said, we migrated, we went to Milan. Yeah. She said, but I've never come back.
Yeah.
And I said, how could you not come back? I said, we live in Australia and I love coming back here. She said, no, but we went there and we just didn't come back. She said, I never came back at all. And it made me realise then that it wasn't just us that migrated to Australia or America, that even people who were living in Calabrian region went away and never ever come back. Yeah. And now they are coming back. Gino, my husband, he came to Australia when he was 21. So all he had, when we go there, it's like storytelling. Oh. They sit together. I love sitting with them. They tell the stories of when they were growing up, when they were going to school and all that. And it's just amazing. Their stories are so amazing. All his friends that are his age now, they went up north. They became doctors. They become lawyers. They become, they become whatever they've become. They now came back to Calabria, are living in Calabria. If not, they're there most of the time. They've got their house there. So what they do now is writing books.
Yeah.
They write books. and all about the history of their growing up in Calabria. It's amazing.
It is, and it's a sad reality that Calabria is really its biggest export is basically its people. And as you say, they migrate not merely overseas but within Italy, and that's very true. One of the people that's going to speak at this conference is a fellow called Salvatore Dolomeo, who's from Calabria but lived most of his life in Milan, and he and others are going to discuss.
I think I've seen him on.
Well, you might have,
yeah.
But we're going to have a discussion about the role of the consulta. If you know, the regional government in Calabria, the legislation provides that they can appoint consultori from all over the world, ostensibly the role being to liaise with the government to tell them what the communities in the various countries require in terms of cultural support. But it hasn't really worked all that well. So one of the things I think is important is let's get consultori from different parts to come along and discuss it and have some of the politicians see it so that they can see what we think. And Salvatore will be unique because he's got some very good views about the thing. So
lovely.
It'll be interesting. And then, again, if you're there, it'll be lovely to have you there. All right. I know that you're hosting this event tomorrow night and there's a lot to prepare.
Can I just tell you about another thing that when we go to Calabria, because we've got relatives there, when they do the Festa di Ramadonna, one night they have a serata del migranti.
Oh, yes.
So they asked us my husband Gino, would he be part of it? Because they involve us in a lot of things. And during the mass, during the evening mass during the festa, they asked us to prepare something for Gino to come in as a migrant.
Right.
So we found an old suitcase and we tied it up with a string like they would in those days when they migrated. We, Gino had his hat like they would in those days, and we tied up how they used to, on the stick they used to have their bread or whatever.
Food,
So during the mass they introduced the flowers that was represent and they bring along whatever else they bring along, baskets of food to give to the poor, and then Gino, and then I said, now this Generoso, his name is Generoso, he represents the people that left this village, and never made it back, and some made it back, but all the people that left this village, wow. It just created such an emotional thing in that church. It was just, and they come and saw us after, said, people said, you reminded us of my uncle that left and never came back, and you reminded me of my father, but he ended up coming back, and all these emotions. He reminded everybody of the people that left.
And that's good, and you're right. There are people who are actually going back to live in Calabria. I know that there's a couple of academics who went to the United States, or their parents went to the United States, and they became academics in the United States. And on their retirement, they've gone to the University of Calabria and taught courses there. So I think that might be a growth, and it'll be good. And again, part of the thing is to make people understand that you can literally have a foot in both countries. You can go to Calabria for a period of time and come back to Australia, United States, or whatever.
I think the same as we had both here, like we had our Calabrese home and our Australian living. You can do the Australian and the Italian.
Which is very good. And anyway, again, thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
For giving us the time. I know that how busy you are, not just running the business, but also because of the event that's on tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night and hopefully seeing you at the conference, and thank you again. And if anyone, you might want to say, in terms of any product that you produce, there's a web page, as I understand it. Anyone that wants to make an order, they can? Or?
Yes, you can go to info. The web page is... what is it? www.tabletopgrapes, I think. .com.au. Yeah. Yep. But you'll find us Tabletop Grapes, and you'll find
there's
it.
a form there.
Yeah.
And thanks again. Thank you.
No
very
worries.
much.
Thank you. I hope I was useful to you.
Excellent. You very are. Thank you very much.
Yeah.